So we are going to continue the study that we started last week of the book Alert by the spirit Joanna de Angelis and Divaldo Franco. And we are in chapter 2 today, okay? So I'm going to read and stop, and we are going to be commenting as we normally use during our study groups. So, die to live. Whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Jesus. The painful conjecture of death, shadowed by afflictions that transit between curtains of continuous stirs, postpones the reality of life, which proceeds exuberant when the material shell is interrupted. Death reveals life, which presents itself in plenitude, when it has surpassed the vibrational barriers that the body establishes as impediments. Do not allow yourself to be dominated by a state of rebellion when facing the presence of death. Do not allow death's surprise to convert into profound damage by collapsing the construction of hope around the need to continue towards obligations after the departure of the beloved one. So let us stop it here, and we would like to have the contribution of all of you to help and to comment as well. Obviously, we are talking. Joanna de Angelis is presenting to us today our way of perceiving and understanding death from the material perspective. And she's going to try to tell us how should we perceive it from the spiritual perspective. So anyone would like to comment something from this first paragraph that you read?
Jussara, I have just a question about the book. I'd like to buy the Portuguese version. What's the name in Portuguese? Alerta?
Alerta, yes.
By Joanna de Angelis, yeah? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, the first paragraph, Joanna de Angelis always use, some very difficult vocabulary, elaborate way of presenting her ideas. So here, basically, she's trying to tell us that we have been giving too much importance to what is known to us as death. Because death per se does not exist. Since we understand that, we are immortal spirits, death means just the passage from one aspect of life to another one. The one that we are living on the material side is when, that she says here, we will leave behind the barriers of our body that presents even impediments for us as a spirit to live in full, to live in plenitude. So that's the reason why, in a way, we should not allow death to be something that is going to hurt us that much, and not understanding that our loved ones continue in their existence. So that's more or less what she's trying to tell us here, that so far from our perspective, death represents a painful process because of our lack of understanding of what death really means. Any more comments? And it's because of that that she says we should not put ourselves in a state of rebellion, even when we go through, to process of death that we do not understand, because like We all know there is not a designated age for us to die. We can see death among the young, the very young, the middle-aged, the elderly. So of course it's going to take us by surprise. In many instances, we don't have, a notice that our time is about to expire. So many times when we are not talking about a prolonged state of illnesses, it takes us by surprise, and it can provoke a more difficult impact on the lives of the ones that they are left behind in a way. But all of that, all this pain, all this despair, is mostly for our lack of understanding that we are eternal spirits.
Looks like Orlando has some question. She should realize this is what happens. No?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Never? She should realize this is what happens when we are incarnate in a physical body.
Yeah, I mean, not only she, everyone else. We all understand that at this point, at a certain point in life, even children, they do understand that that death is part of life, that we are going to leave this physical body behind. What she's is trying to tell us here, and remember that every time we are going to say, pay attention to the title of the book, that is alert, be alert, wake up for this reality, is to bring us some words of encouragement to say, you shouldn't be that sad, that desperate when death comes to you or to others. We should understand that this is a natural part of life, and most of all, that this does not represent the end of life, and even less the end of connections, relationships we have. So let's read a little more, and then we can stop to comment. Life in its lofty depths presents itself in stages, in and outside the body. We all know that the body, for as lasting as it is in its biological condition, is always ephemeral and able to interrupt its cycle with or without previous notice. For that reason, do not over-fixate in the transitory values of matter. Keep in mind that regardless of the necessity to achieve an intelligent ministry during the corporeal experience, life in itself has its genesis and its beacon beyond the densest matter. So again, she's emphasizing that life exists whether we have a physical body or not. And because of the biological condition that we have to understand that the body that we possess do not have conditions to live eternal life. So that's why it deteriorates and it ceases to work. It ceases, so to say, a cycle that encompasses the life that we are having on this existence. So in this way is where she says we should not over fixate, not even in our physical body, and much less in what pertains to the life of this physical body. Because this is only going to bring us pain. I mean, when we look at ourselves and see your physical body deteriorates, your illness, you presenting illnesses, your health compromise, all of that. So we have to understand, however, and of course we are going to cherish life in this existence because it is an instrument for us to develop our intelligence as well, to act on matter, on a corporeal existence, and in this way to help as well in the evolvement of our spirit. Any comments or questions? We are talking about a common subject here.
It's true that through Spiritism, we understand this, at least intellectually. But many people outside don't really have a clear view of this.
Hello, sorry, I lost that.
I was just pointing out the fact that in Spiritism, we study this and understand that life continues and how it continues. But outside of Spiritism, it's not always clear that what's being told to people applies.
Yeah, Yeah, go on, Philip.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I mean, from the spiritist perspective, from reincarnationist philosophies, it's much easier for us to have a broader understanding and even to feel more, sort of consolation with when death presents itself. To others, however, like we always refer to, it is according to statistics numbers that we have, 90% of the world population do believe in the immortality of the soul. So although they do not believe in reincarnation, although they do not understand exactly how those things happen, they have the idea that the spirit continues living. And constantly, whether you are Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, you see, people addressing to an existence beyond the life of the flesh. From us, spiritists, among the reincarnationists, we have an even clearer idea of what does this mean. Meaning that not only we have immortal lives, but we will have other opportunities of living on earth. And that our connections and love relationships are not going to be extinguished with the death of the physical body. So in a way, it brings us much more comfort than to other religious or philosophies. You're absolutely right.
There is a comment from Orlando Jussara. And he said that I don't think she's offering those who die or will die due to the coronavirus any comfort. I thought she was a compassionate saint.
Well, not only that, there are much more people dying today of other things than from corona. Actually, every day there are an average of 150,000 people dying, So in the world, there are many, many even greater number of people dying from other causes. The comfort, the consolation here is mostly related to the fact that we do not die. So for everyone that is open, that's why we start with this message from Jesus. Whoever lives by believing in me will never die. So this is 2,000 years ago, and from the Gospels, and present in many, from the Gospel of John 11:26, and is present in many religions, you know, that use the Gospels, for instance. So Jesus is clearly saying here, if you believe in me, you will never die. So believing in what he was saying, and even, you know, the process of the resurrection on the third day and all of that, you know, so I think the comfort here is not, you are not going to die. Because there comes a point in life, I know people that begs to die because they have been, you know, ill for so long. They are approaching 100 years old. They are bedridden or something like that, you know, enough is enough. So the comfort here is not to say you're never going to die with your physical body. The comfort here is, even if you are going to be dying from whatever cause it is, because I think it's even more shocking to die from a lost bullet than to die from corona. You know, so there are many other horrible ways of going, and surprising and fair ways of going. So the question here is not exactly how we are going to go, but to remember that one way or another, at certain point in time, our physical body will be in decay and will cease its physical existence. So we have to focus on the life of the spirit. This is what it is comforting for a parent that lost a child to say, this child is not lost to you. It is no longer physical. It's no longer physical present, but it's there, and soon enough you're going to meet, and you are going to meet even when you go to sleep during the night. And so I think that the whole point of comforting here that she's bringing, and remember, she's bringing those pages, of course, to those that she knows are already sympathetic to, at least with the Spiritist ideas. So she's talking to us that already have at least a minimum understanding that life goes on. And so she's trying to say, remember all that you have been studying. Remember that all the time, you know, in the Spirit's book, we say about, you know, your immortal spirit, that, you know, about you before reincarnation, you after this reincarnation and all that. It's time for you to put this in practice when you have to face, and all of us will have to face at one point in life or another, the loss of a loved one, and even ourselves. It will come a point in time that we will have to leave. Anything else? Any other question or comment?
No, he just say that your open mind bring tears to my eyes.
Thank you, Orlando. Okay, so let's go on here, see what else Joanna is telling us. Death deserves careful reflections in which we cannot pilfer from ourselves, considering that it dominates all beings in the process of inevitable transformation. Okay. Schedule your activities counting on the inexorable phenomenon of death. It will conduct you to the return. It is necessary to prepare yourself for this liberating travel. Also, consider in your meditations the possibility of the departure of those who are dear to you, preceding you in the regression to the world of origin. Normally, what we do is exactly the other way around. I mean, if you say death, you cross your mouth, say, no, don't say this word. You know, like if we say this word, we are going to invite death before it is really our time. So normally, usually people do not like to talk about death, to think about death, and to prepare for death, which is, it's not good, which is nonsense, like she's saying here. We have to prepare ourselves. We have to know that, I mean, it's part of life. And this is a part of life that we have no doubt. The only thing that we do not know is when and how it's going to happen. But it's going to happen for us and for our loved ones. So in this way, she's even inviting us to be more prevident, to live life in a way that we are contemplating this idea, that we are going to prepare ourselves for this, according to how she uses here, liberating travel. And also, which can be sometimes even harder, to prepare ourselves for the part of the loved ones. There is an author that I like very much, and quite often Divaldo also mentions here, is Leo Buscaglia. And he, in one of his books, he says that we should live as if death was just one arm away from us. And that if we live it like that, we would perhaps behave much differently. And much differently in this case is not, you know, to go crazy and thinking, oh, I have to get the best out of life according to material perspective, a party person. But it's mostly in terms of, you know, thinking, if I had to present myself today, would I be happy? Also, he brings this knowledge, I mean, this idea in a course that he gives about love and demonstrations of love, that he said that sometimes, you know, we take relationships from granted, and we do not value the people, or we don't say, you know, how much we appreciate them, and sometimes it can be too late. You know, you can say, oh, I'll say this another time, and then there might not be another time. So that's why, you know, if we, according to him, if we live thinking that death is just at arm's length away from us, perhaps we would be more, we would be nicer to people, and it's so important for us to think about it. He even talks about a case where there is a woman that she was, she really wanted to buy a dress that she liked it very much, and her husband said, oh no, why spending this dress, etc. And then she dies, and he goes there and buy the dress for her, and buries her in this dress. And then Leo Buscaglia says, what is the point of doing that? I mean, what is the point of, you know, going to the wake of a person and say, oh, I love this person so much, and I mean, and this and that, but why this person, why was alive, you never said anything. You never said anything in favor of this person, appreciating the efforts this person did in his or her life, you know. So I think it's so very important, and of course for those who wanted to read about him, He wrote his books in English, so he was a professor at UCLA. Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. You will rencounter those that preceded you in the direction of the spiritual life. In honor of these loved ones who traveled before, proceed in the cultivation of kindness, maintaining the sweet recollections and reliving them in poems of endearment, planning the continuity of the eternal commitment. Well, one thing that is very important for us to remember, once you're dead, no one can talk behind your back. You will always know what people are saying about you. Even if you're not present, per se, hearing with your spiritual ears, the vibration of the comments will reach you. That's how prayers reach us. That's how, praises reach us. That's how malice and ill will reaches us. So here she's saying, if you think that that person is no longer in existence and you're not going to meet them again, think twice. And whenever possible, especially with the loved ones, remember to always think about them and talking about them in a good way, because you're going to meet again. So this is good news and bad news, right? Good news because, like we said, people are not lost to us. Bad news, if we behave badly in relation to them, there is no way we can hide it. Questions, comments?
When I think about this one, Jussara, what comes in my mind is I really see like today more and more, every thought is like an evocation. Can you hear me?
And not so much, if you could speak a little louder.
Yeah, because I could, okay. Let me see if it gets better.
Yeah.
I realized that every thought is a kind of evocation, yeah? Doesn't matter if you're incarnate or discarnated. And more I'm trying to see, like, when I think about someone, if I can educate my emotions to be more kind, more careful, yeah? Because the same way around, I try to see myself. Imagine I will discarnate today and I will hear like my best friends talking something negative about myself. And we will end up talking from one another. So how would I feel? So how would they feel, yeah? And second thing about death, like I'm the youngest of 12 kids. And about 3 weeks ago, nobody passed away. The three first that died, I was not born yet when they died, so I didn't know them in this life. But the other 9 were still all incarnated. And I had this dream where I saw myself about 3 weeks ago, seeing every one of my elderly brothers and sisters discarnating one by one. And it was such a pain. I felt such a solitude, such a lonely feeling in that moment, like this space that nobody could like really feel. So I realized as much as we study all this and you think we're prepared, we don't know how we're going to deal with the death of beloved ones, yeah? And I had that experience like incarnated. It was very painful. I felt like, like there's no reference, there is nobody to hold your hand. So I think if you can do this today, start to establish this detachment right now, little by little, emotionally and materially as well, you'll be better for us. Yeah.
Hey, you said something so important, Adilson, in terms of, how with our thoughts we do a sort of evocation. I mean, it's what the spirits all the time say. right? Be careful with what you're thinking. So, of course, you were talking specifically about in this point in terms of, thinking good or bad about someone, even someone that we know or we knew that has passed. But this is how we also make associations with spirits and even with people. People that are going to be sympathetic or antipathetic to us is the same way, because the way we vibrate with our thoughts is what wind up attracting people next to us and make, friends. They are connected by, this kind of sympathies. So let's read a bit more here. You will re-encounter those that preceded, I don't know, we read this one already, so sorry. If you cry, which is natural, comfort yourself with the soothing certainty that you will coexist with your beloved once again. Do not allow yourself to become distressed by the improbable perspective of survival. Everything speaks to us about life. The oak glen tears itself into pieces for the tree to surge, and little by little it becomes enormous. The caterpillar frees the butterfly when its form is extinguished. The pollen releases the perpetuity of the species. Everything transforms itself before the miracle of death, which is the gift of life. So here, she's saying, we understand that it's natural if we cry, but remember that even when we are crying, even when we are missing the person, it doesn't mean that we are not going to be with each other again. And she's bringing through the examples of the oak, the caterpillar, the pollen, all examples of life and continuity of life, even in more important and greater forms, like the oak glen tears that become this huge, enormous tree, the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly, the pollen that gives, rises to even more life in different species. So there is always, this transformation and this growth that is part of the process of, the cycles of life that we go through. Any comments or? Anything? Okay, so let's read. When facing Jesus in the ignominy of the cross, Maria and all who loved him cried. Longing and pain mixed themselves when facing the consummation of the corporeal departure. But soon after, full of life, he returned to the maternal and fraternal coexistence, showing the perennial nature of life. Trust in the triumph, resurrection, and prepare yourself for the joy of survival. Paul the Apostle movingly exclaimed, "Death has been swallowed up in victory." Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? And the enlightened Assisi, pacified and trusting, asserted in his simple prayer, "And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life." Your beloved who departed are alive and waiting for the moment in which, when your earthly duties are completed, you will march in the direction of the happy and perennial reunion. Okay, so Joanna de Angelis has this style of writing, especially in this book, where she starts presenting the subject, presenting, the important ideas, and then she goes and developing it according to the material and the spiritual perspective. And she always finishes with, or normally she always, she tends to finish it with more spiritual comments that leads us to think about the subject from a different or more spiritual perspective. In this case, she's talking even about the death of Jesus, that we all know died a very shameful death, because at that point in time, for you to be crucified was a shameful way of, being condemned. And of course, in this sense, his mother and all his, friends, the disciples, they were very afraid and consumed with pain and suffering and crying. But while they were doing that, Jesus was promising eternal life. And like it says here, and as we know, he showed himself again to many of them to demonstrate that life never ceases. And then we have, from the example of Paul, also define death, because death, they cannot, it doesn't represent a victory at all, because it doesn't exist. We have just a cessation of matter that allows us to physically manifest in life. But life per se does not exist. And that's why when Francis of Assisi also says it is when dying that we are born to eternal life, is because we are much freer in the life of a spirit than when we are constrained by the physicality of our body. So again, she finishes, your beloved who departed are alive and waiting for the moment when it's time for us to return. Then we will be able to commune in perennial renewal. Even when we do not see our loved ones immediately after the death of the body, it doesn't mean that we are not going to be with them, have other experiences, and be together again. So this is something that is important for us always to keep in mind, and to start to seeing death from a different perspective. Like she said here, of course it's natural that we are going to miss the person. Of course it's natural that it's going to be, different. If you move from one place to another, you already miss the old place. How can you not miss someone that is important in your life? We miss material things that are not important. How come we are not going to miss a soul that represents so much in this life for us? So it's only natural. We are not at any point here dismissing the value that we are going to be giving to people that are part of our, family, friends, circle, people that represent so much in our lives. Of course we will. Of course we will be sad. Of course we will miss that person and sharing experiences with that person in our lives. But the consolation of knowing that this is just temporary will help us to endure, to cope with the situation, and will give us so much more hope and even the certainty that we can continue talking to this person, praying to this person, praising and loving this person, because we are going to meet again. Questions, comments?
I think everything you said and the text, it's so beautiful and powerful. And this last sentence you read, it's so emotional when you think about Jesus, the way he passed, the way he suffered to us, and all the love, and he came back. And also, I feel it's so nice to receive that message that we know already, but when you read about we're gonna meet them again, we're gonna see them. I think the way I do with my ancestors is I pray for them every time when I want to talk. I'm like, oh, what she would say, what, and then I pray. It's so comfortable. I think that text, that lesson today is really bring us that certainty of the life goes on. I just have one little question on the previous sentence when she asked us to prepare ourselves for the death. Is more in the spiritual concept or material? Because in this pandemic, I heard last week, I learned that a lot of people went to look for lawyers to do their will because they want to be not have the family suffering after something goes wrong, even if they are not sick. I just, yeah, that's my question. It was more in both or more in the spiritual, the way we are treating each other.
I think both of things, because for you to prepare your physical departure as well is a sign of responsibility, towards your physical commitments and towards the people that are around you. And we know how much this can represent a distress in family life when there is a sudden death and there is no time to organize anything and sharing inheritance, or even knowing where to go or to look for things. So I think it's an act of responsibility that, unfortunately, because of our fear of dying, the idea of of contemplating death is so dreadful to the majority of us that we neglect prepare things that could make easier the life of those that are going to remain. And even us, in the sense of of, like you said, spiritually speaking, knowing that this can happen from 1 minute to the next. I remember that Divaldo, of course, at this point in life, it's more than understandable. He's 93 years old, but he, from a long time already, he says, but every time I wake up in the morning and I see that I'm alive, I bless God, because I don't know when I'm going to sleep, if I'm going to wake up the following day. And so I think that if we prepare and if you live our lives thinking, I know exactly now what are the true values of life, and I don't have time to waste because I don't know when I'm going to be called. Not only are you going to be a much better person, or you should be a much better person, but also you are going to do all the preparation, spiritually speaking, and in terms of the material affairs you have to depart even more freer. Because I mean, we have reports of spirits that come and say and demonstrate their worries about all, that they left behind in terms of not being careful or, preparing for their departure and leaving their affairs in order. So I think we all should do that. And it's a shame that we still feel this way, that it seems that if I'm talking about death, it's like I'm inviting death to come right now, which has nothing to do with that, nothing to do with that. So my advice to us all is, let's try to be prevident and to really prepare in each and every sense.
Orlando add something in the chat. He say, what would she say about the coronavirus taking away people's life? What justification she would offer to the families?
Yeah, Orlando, I think it's always, the same thing. Like I said, regardless of how we are departing, we all bring to ourselves, and the coronavirus is actually a consequence of our way of living so far. We are, even this week, Divaldo gave a talk and he was saying, I mean, we all, overall, in the whole world, we have been living in such an inconsequent way that we had to have something to stop us and to make us think and to make us, review things. So, and one thing that we know that for all of those that are dying, which is common, but even if you're dying from corona or not, we all have been receiving and guided and assisted by the spirituality, as much as we open ourselves to that, because it depends on us as well. It's not only depend on the spirit, right? It always depends on us. They're there to help. It's and again, the greatest consolation we can say is they're not dead. Of course, I could go and say, soon enough, you will be with them. But then can you imagine the reaction of people? I say, don't worry, soon enough, you're going to meet them. They'll say, God forbid, right now. But that's true as well. We could say that, don't worry, soon enough you're going to be with them. Because life goes like this, Okay, if you don't have any more comments or questions, we can go to our end. Next week, we're going to talk, the topic is always with God. Okay, just for you to know.
Just a little reminder. Next Saturday, we're gonna have the lecture with what's his name?
Álvaro Mordecai.
Yes, he's gonna talk about the 10 plagues of Egypt with a spiritual view. And we want to invite everybody also for the classes on Thursday at noon. We have gospel. Thursday at 6:30, we have the Spirit's book. And after that, the Medium's book. And on Sundays, next Sunday, we're gonna have the gospel at 11 o'clock, okay? So, Adilso, can you do the prayer, the final prayer for us today?
Yes, of course I can.
Thank you.
So we invite all of us to take this moment and visualize our brother Jesus and the mentors of SGNY visiting each one of our homes, visiting each one of our hearts. Can you say how grateful we are, beloved God, for all these teachings, for our sister Joanna de Angelis, Tio Nilson, Divaldo, and all the volunteers of Mansão do Caminho in Salvador, Bahia, for being able to bring all these books to our lives, to our hearts. Our gratitude for all the ones responsible for the translation of this book. And we pray today, Lord, that each one of us, incarnate and discarnate brothers and sisters, can receive the treatment we are in need to bring healing to our physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies. Help us to learn how to elevate our thoughts in prayers and vigilance, to better prepare ourselves to detach from our physical bodies when the time comes. We pray for everyone who is in the transition to return back to the spiritual realm today. May your brothers and sisters be able to receive the guidance they need to feel the joy and the grace to return back home to their beloved ones. We pray for SNUI, all the workers, and all the attendees of this beautiful center to continue this work, to help us to console our hearts and to enlighten our minds. So be it.